Okay, this matter is a continuation from this morning. I guess we're with you, Mr. Schaefer. Are you ready to proceed?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, Your Honor, due to the new witnesses, we also have a new witness. I don't know. We're fine with calling him later, out of order if Mr. Schaefer has his witnesses ready to go, but I did want to amend that court.
Yeah, it's up to you. So, Mr. Schaefer, do you want to go with yours or take Miss Greenlee
Well,
Flores?
if it's not a rebuttal, I think she needs to go first.
Is it a rebuttal, Miss Greenlee Flores?
Why don't we let Mr. Schaefer's witnesses go first and we'll call him as a rebuttal?
Okay. Okay, Mr. Schaefer, who's your first witness?
Clyde Lampkin. Mr. Lampkin, you are the father of 3 minor children that you have with Jessica, is that correct?
Yeah.
And how old are they at the present time?
Starting with the youngest, 13, 15, and 16.
Okay, speak right up.
13, 15, and 16.
Okay, very good. And you've been embroiled in this divorce for over a year now. In your perspective, what was the cause of the breakdown of this marriage?
My wife decided to commit adultery.
Okay, and when did you learn that she had done so?
I learned of the emotional part of it, so it was called April 9th of 2022.
April 9th of 2022?
Correct.
And did you discuss this with her?
Multiple times.
And did she acknowledge that she was unfaithful to you?
On different levels. The full weight of the affair came out on June 26th of 2022.
All right. And because of that, did there come a time that you separated from your wife?
Yes, we separated in April, as well as September 22nd of 2022.
Was there an effort to reconcile after you learned of the unfaithfulness?
There was.
What did you do in that regard?
I attempted to overlook and work on the marriage, anything that she could have felt was wrong, and whatever I just worked on my own feelings to get over it.
Okay, and then did there come a time after this effort to reconcile that you separated again?
Yes.
And when was that?
In November of 22 was the third time we separated.
And what was the catalyst or the reason that you separated that time?
I found out that she was still in contact with her boyfriend, who she was having an affair with.
And is that Mr. Dew?
Yes, it is.
And so as a result of that, you separated, and then there was a divorce filed in January of 23. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. As we have heard, the property has been divided. Is that correct? All right. And what is your current relationship with your 3 kids?
Fight for every moment that we can get, or that I can get to spend with them. And what time we do get is the best word for it. It's I don't get to see them as much as I'd like.
Okay. And are they active teenagers?
Very active.
What are they involved in?
Currently, they're all involved in basketball. They do. My youngest son does soccer, and my youngest daughter used to do soccer as well.
Do you participate in attending these events?
As much as possible.
Okay, and you are employed at the present time, is that correct?
Correct.
What is your employment?
General contractor.
And
Sir,
how long?
hold on, sir. You're going to have to speak up. We can't hear you.
Okay. I'll move a chair around here. All right, we'll try that, Judge. That may be better. How long have you been a general contractor?
I have been self-employed as a general contractor since 2010.
And what is the name of your company?
C-Square Construction.
And what kind of construction do you do?
Mainly residential remodel.
All right. And you have filed income taxes every year in relation to your business and your other income?
Correct.
And we have Exhibit A and Exhibit B already into evidence. Are those your returns for 21 and 22?
They are.
Are they accurate?
Yes, they are.
And have you declared all of your income and expenses on those?
Yes.
And who is your accountant?
Services.
And is there a particular person there you deal with?
For the most part, it's Dave Sutton, but his friend does it as well. I don't know his name.
Okay. We have heard some suggestions that you deal in cash a lot. Is there a lot of cash in your business?
No, it's very seldom that a customer will offer to pay in cash. However, I do make a lot of withdrawals in cash and use that for my accounting.
And why do you do that?
I've done that since I've began my business. It's always been an easier way of accounting in certain instances for me.
And have you provided all of that accounting of withdrawals and deposits of cash and all of your receipts for bills?
Yes.
And in your business, do you have employees?
Yes.
And we heard from your wife that it varies in the amount depending on what year it's been. Is that accurate?
Yes. There's some years they're busier than others. And sometimes there's full-time employees and sometimes we just have a couple part-time.
Okay. And have they all been paid?
Yes.
And do you use credit cards in your business and in personal life?
Yes.
And are many of your expenses on credit cards?
A majority of them, I would say so. Yes, I use those a lot and then pay them off.
Okay.
Which it's all on the bank record, shows up on the bank record.
And the bank records that have been entered into evidence will show payment to credit cards on various months. Is that true?
Correct.
And the ones that are to Lowe's and Menards and those supply houses, are those business related?
Yes.
And your wife says, well, I have added up all the deposits in these various accounts and it comes out to a huge number. What is your response to that?
Everything that we have or that we've ever done, we take to our accountant, turn it in. He will go through and we look for anything that may be duplicitous or not, or that would need to be counted. There's things I miss that come up in the charges as far as insurance or advertising. But those cash withdrawals or anything like that that may have been taken out of business, they coincide with a deposit that's made into a personal account for payments to other accounts that are linked to that or accounts payable.
So is money taken out and redeposited in various accounts that have been presented here today?
Yes.
And so there's double dipping, if you will, in relation to the deposits, total deposits.
Yes.
And in 2022, on your Schedule C being Exhibit A, there's an indication that you had gross income of $189,000 and change from C Square. Is that your understanding of what the determination was in that year?
Yes.
Does that appear to be accurate to you?
Yes.
And it also indicates the amount of material that you purchased subtracted on Schedule C.
Correct.
And your net amount was some $22,000 of net income. Is that correct?
That sounds about right. I'm familiar. Can't recall right now.
Okay, but whatever the indication of Schedule C would be what you paid, and you believe that is accurate.
Correct.
Have you done anything nefarious or to keep any sort of income away from the accountant when he figures your taxes?
No, sir.
Okay, speak right up now.
No, sir.
Now, during the time that the various accounts were presented and a total came out, were there loans that you had taken out during that time period?
There has been a couple this year, an amount of right around $42,000 in loans I took out to get by.
And where would those loans go? Would they go into these accounts?
Yes, the loans I'm speaking of went directly into the business account.
And from what source did you receive the loans?
The actual lender,
Yes,
one was Best Egg and one was Lending Point.
and they were loans you took out through for business purposes or personal purposes?
Business, and just to get by with bills.
Okay. your wife had testified that there was some $60,000 worth of credit card debt that got settled out earlier on. Is that consistent with your recollection of the amount you were carrying on credit cards?
Yes, that was the amount that she still had possession of. I had some as well.
So it was an amount more than $60,000.
Total between us, yes.
Okay. And in relation to the kids, do you love your kids?
I do.
Do you feel that they love you?
I do.
Do you have an ongoing relationship with them?
I do.
How often do you see the kids?
It varies. Some weeks or months, it's a lot more often than normal, and sometimes it's not nearly what I want it to be.
Okay, well, let's give an example. A busy week, how often would you see the kids?
Whether it be giving them a ride or going to dinner at least a couple times a week.
And is that all three of them?
No, I haven't got to see Delaney here in the last couple months.
And the last couple months, what's the difficulty with Delaney?
Not quite sure. I can't testify to her feelings. I think I know what it could be, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's
How old is Delaney?
16.
And we had heard that she was put into counseling by your wife. Were you aware that she was put in counseling?
Just my wife had mentioned that she was going to, or she needed counseling, but never attested to an actual schedule or what exactly it was for.
Okay. And did your wife ever tell you who the counselor were or what the agency was going to be?
No, sir.
Okay. When did you find out that she in fact was in counseling?
Like I say, my wife had mentioned it at some point. Other than that, it hadn't been reapproached or discussed as of lately.
Okay. We had argued, at least in the opening statement, that you believe that the children have been poisoned against you. What's your basis for that?
Judging by some of the actions, the communication, and just some of the cues that they give when they discuss certain things or certain conversations have come up.
Okay. Now you heard your wife testify that she communicates with them and has talked to them about the affairs and that sort of thing. And you, have you ever talked to them about the affairs that we have talked about?
Yes, I'm sure I have. I know that, and I can't attest for the plaintiff, but for myself, I know that there's been a few times where my emotions have gotten the best of me, and I've ran off at the mouth. Is the best way to put it.
Okay. Now, in relation to Delaney, are you aware of some emotional problems that she's going through at the present time?
No, I mean, I believe my wife. If she says that there's emotional issues, she's been good at reading the children, just as I have. We can both tell if there's something going on. So if she says there's something going on, then yeah, there's probably something wrong. I don't have that much of a rapport with her enough for her to open up like I know that she does with her mom.
Are you aware that your oldest daughter has come out of the closet in relation to sexual orientation?
I have been made aware of that.
And has your wife ever discussed that with you?
I think we have talked about it. That's been a byproduct of and I can't put a date nor whether that was the context of the conversation, but that has come up. And from what I can recall, the times that we did talk about it, it was Jesse had asked me not to, that it was probably something that she wanted to personally discuss with me instead of me finding out through the gossip or and she didn't want.
Just interpretation. Is it that your wife wanted to talk to you about it, or she
No.
she wanted Delaney to talk to you about
Yeah, she didn't want to be the one that gave me the news.
Okay. Did Delaney ever broach the subject with you?
No, not directly. No.
indirectly?
We had a conversation one time that it was brought up indirectly. Yes.
Okay.
And at no point has she ever admitted it.
Yeah.
Or, it's we love her. I love her either way. So it's not that big of a deal
Okay.
to me.
Well, I guess the point of the question is, do you think that she's going through some sort of emotional stress as a result of that?
You couldn't say that it wouldn't be part of it in
Right.
conjunction with everything else.
Okay. During this marriage of almost 20 years, how would you describe your function in raising the children and your wife's function in raising the children?
I would say, for the most part, we were pretty dynamic. We did well. We unspoken, but we both had our duties, and we both stepped up when the other one couldn't.
Okay. And we have heard some testimony that you attended some of the extracurricular activities. Have you attended all, some, or what?
Some.
Some.
No.
Do some conflict with your employment?
Yes, some have. Yeah.
Okay. And have you reached out to see, meet, and talk to the children during the week?
Yes, pretty regularly, if not every day, every other day.
Okay. And will you on occasion meet with them during the week?
Yes.
Where are you currently living?
I live in a triplex off of Elk Street.
Okay. And have you had the kids overnight since you've been in that situation?
Yes, the little ones, the two youngest.
The two youngest. And what are the accommodations for them when they are spending overnights?
Not the best. We have a couch and an air mattress. Is what we would use.
And has that sufficed for their needs at that point in time?
Yeah, we make do. It's not the ideal situation.
Okay. What is your anticipation in relation to housing in the future?
I would like to have financing capabilities, even though the market's not the best, to get a larger home, something that they would be more suitable for the kids, more space.
Okay, your wife acknowledged that she, in the property settlement, received the Orchard Street property, and there's a mortgage on that with your name on it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And she has 6 months, as she testified, to get your name off of that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you waiting for that to get proper housing for the kids?
Yes, it still has. It's the part of the property is that another loan and the her vehicle that are still in one name.
Okay. And that needs to be refinanced also?
Yes.
Good. And that has not been done yet?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you have the capacity and the ability to raise your children and give them guidance?
I do.
And have you done that?
To the best of my ability.
All right. And have you been doing that all of their lives?
As long as they've been alive.
Okay. And who lives with you at your apartment at the present time?
I have a girlfriend.
Does she live in?
Yes, she does.
Okay. And when did the girlfriend come into the picture?
I began seeing her in November of 22.
November of 22?
Yeah.
Was that after you learned of the affair that your wife was having?
Yeah, it was after that was the third time that we split.
Okay. And has there been anybody else in the picture since the separation, other than your current girlfriend?
I dated for a while. Yeah.
When did you date?
I would say it was April, May.
Of what year?
This year.
Of this year?
Or 23.
23.
Yeah.
Okay. When did you get back with the girlfriend that you dated in November of 22?
It was around the same time. It wasn't April or May.
Yeah.
And
how are the kids doing in school?
very good.
And have you had
to assist them in any of their educational endeavors?
No, not here really recently. There's nothing that they've required help with or anything.
And they seem to be doing well?
Yes, sir.
And other than the sporting activities you told me about, what else are they doing extracurricular, if anything?
Um, I other than Robbie is picked up golfing this year, I don't think there's much extracurricular that they have going on.
Okay. Are you willing to facilitate the relationship of the children with their mother?
Yes,
And have you done so in the past?
yes, I have, and I know that I can always do better.
Okay. And so do you encourage your children to have a good relationship with their mother?
I think it's unspoken. I think that's something that I've discussed with my wife. It's something that could never be torn away. They don't need to know. They know that that's always there. It's hard to explain.
Okay. Obviously, this has been a tough year for probably both you and your wife and the kids. Going forward, what do you think is in the best interest of the children as to the custodial order of this court?
I believe my children are no exception, that all children need both parents if they can possibly be available. I know that I need them in my life and they need me.
And are you willing to try to improve the communication skills between you and your wife for the benefit of the kids?
Of course. Yes.
How would you describe those abilities at the present time? Are you two talking with each other at all?
No, there's a current PPO that since I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was at the beginning of September that or maybe it was October, that we can't communicate.
All right. Would you request a dispensation for kid purposes that you two communicate directly?
Yes.
Do you believe that you can communicate with your wife directly about the children without any malice or ill will between the two of you?
Yeah, as long as it's about the children, I think that we can all stay on task.
Okay. Do you believe your wife can do that?
I believe she can do anything. I know that I can. I believe she can, and I can attest to the fact that there's been times where we have both lost bearings in a conversation.
All right.
And drift away from the children.
Yeah. As to the parenting time at the present time, what do you think each of you should have? What should be the living arrangements for the kids?
I live in a one-bedroom apartment, so the same reason that I chose to leave the home is that was their home. That's where they grew up and what they knew. I can't give them that overnight situation I believe that they need, especially not for all three of them. But I do believe that they need regular time with me and until I can provide a place to start getting more of those overnights where they're more comfortable.
All right. And are you willing to be as flexible as possible to accommodate the time with the children?
Yeah, and I think I've proven that. I've just about taken up every morsel of time that they will give me or whatever need, whether it's just picking them up and from practice and dropping them back off at their house.
Yeah. In relation to the support requirements, are you in agreement that your wife makes $84,000?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that her W-2 or whatever shows that. I know that that's what she stated to me.
Yes.
last December this time or last year.
And does Exhibit A or 22 return accurately reflect your income in 2022?
Yes,
And this year you have the same employment, is that correct?
I do the same.
And is your income going to be substantially different than it was last year?
I does not feel that way, and I won't know until the end of the month when I turn everything to my account.
Okay.
But there's nothing that's over the last decade that I've changed or that makes this year feel any different other than our personal issues that we were going through.
Okay. So your business seems to be the same as it was last year and the year before?
Yeah.
Okay. Over the years, the two of you have had other sources of income, is that correct?
Yeah.
Your Honor, excuse me just a second, I need to get some connection. In the past, you and your wife have had other sources of income, have you not?
Yes.
Have you had rentals?
Yes.
How many rentals have you had over the years?
At one time we had 5.
Have they all been liquidated?
Yes.
In the particular year, were there some capital gains that were declared on your income tax returns?
Yes, I know for sure in 2022, and I believe in 2021 we had sold some of the properties as well.
Okay. And you also, both of you had interest in Kate's Diner in Marshall, is that correct?
Correct.
And that got sold?
It did.
And that was part of a settlement between your wife and you as to paying off credit cards and giving responsibility and giving certain amount of cash to each of you, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did some of that cash make its way to these bank accounts that we have had into evidence?
Yes.
Okay. For example, and if plaintiff's counsel be so kind to screen share her exhibit 7.
Your Honor, do I have your permission to screen share?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, would you please scroll down to the April month of that exhibit? Thank you. I direct your attention to that exhibit under the checks minus division, which is on the lower third of that. Do you see that?
Me? Yes. Yes, sir.
And it has April 17th and April 24th, $2,500 and $5,000. Can you, and then there's on the 21st, it looks like there's another $5,000. Can you tell me what those transactions are?
Hold on, Mr. Schaefer, what page are you on?
It is on the, unfortunately, it's page 1 of 3, but it's on the month of April.
It's page 21 of Exhibit 7, if that helps, Your Honor.
Okay. Hold on.
Okay. And I'm inquiring about the checks minus. Could you explain what those transactions are?
Those are what it appear to be cash withdrawals.
Cash withdrawals?
Yes.
And why would you be making cash withdrawals in the amount of, I guess, a total of $12,500 in the month of April?
I've always used cash as part of my accounting system. Always had it readily on hand to make purchases or pay certain subcontractors.
Would these monies find their way to different bank accounts?
Yes.
And so if it was taken out of this, it may go into a checking account or another account to pay bills?
Correct.
And in these exhibits, are there numerous similar transactions that took place?
Yes, there are.
And in Exhibit 7, even the next page in April, are there payments from checking to places like Lowe's and other supply companies?
Yes.
I direct your attention in that same exhibit, page 1 of 3, which I don't have numbering as to the number of pages, but that would be about 3 pages left under the March 6th deposit. And there appears to be a deposit of $52,250 on that page. Are you able to explain what that would be?
Yeah, that was a job, if not a couple on the same check. Sometimes they don't break them apart. They just do it as a total deposit.
Okay, and on that same page, down under the checks minus, there is a $10,000, a $10,000, and an $83.50 checks minus. What would that be?
Cash.
Those are cash?
Yes.
And they would be paying bills or finding their way to other deposits and other accounts?
Correct.
When your wife is suggesting that she adds up on all these accounts, whether it's $450,000 or $600,000, Is that a true number of independent deposits?
No, I wish it was. For instance, in the last 3 tax years, including 23, there's rather large amounts for the sale of properties, some residential that we used to have together that were liquidated. And then obviously the sale of the commercial property that we had in August of this year.
Okay, so some of the deposits that have found their way into these accounting processes are from the sale of your 5 rentals at various times, is that correct?
Correct.
And it includes loans that you've taken out
Correct.
and the transfer of money from one account to another account to pay bills.
Correct.
Do you believe that your net income from your business is between $22,000 and $30,000 a year?
I believe so.
And do you believe that your 23 income will be in that range?
I feel like it will be, yes.
During your marriage, was there a time when your wife was not making $84,000 a year?
Yes, of course.
And when did she start making a good income in that range?
In that range, she's just the last couple of years.
Was there a time period that she was not you were the total breadwinner?
Yeah, there was over a decade. I would see I would say there was 13, 14 years where she didn't work.
And you were the sole income provider for the family during that time?
Yes.
Your wife indicated that you guys lived pretty lavishly. Do you agree with that comment?
I wouldn't call it lavish. When I think of lavish, I think more. But I can't say that our kids never wanted for anything. I guess never asked for a lot, and we didn't. We never, we didn't struggle.
All right.
By any means.
Are you asking for joint legal and physical custody?
I am.
And you're asking for reasonable parenting time at this point in time until you get to a place that you can properly accommodate the 3 kids?
That would be what I would wish for. Yes.
Good. But please, the court, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Greenlee-Clore, cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Lampkin, are you currently living with your girlfriend?
Yes.
What's her name?
Caitlin Quinn.
Okay, and how long have you been living with her?
I would say it's become what you would call full-time since May of 23.
Okay. Is she your fiance or just girlfriend?
Just girlfriend.
Have you given her any sort of ring?
I have.
Okay. When did you give that to her?
Which one?
Any of them.
I've bought jewelry and given it spontaneously throughout. In no way, shape, or form is it an engagement ring, nor has it ever been used in that context.
How much money do you think you spent on money? How much money do you think you spent on jewelry for your girlfriend?
I don't recall.
How about give me an estimate for one of the rings that you've given her?
$20.
Okay, where are you buying this jewelry from?
Oh man, I've gotten them from street vendors, TJ Maxx, multiple different retailers.
Have you
Not
ever,
that there's.
I'm sorry. Have you
No, go
ever
ahead.
told Miss Lampkin that you're engaged with her?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So your kids have been exposed to your girlfriend, is that correct?
Yes.
If your apartment is a 1-bedroom apartment and your girlfriend lives there, are you and your girlfriend staying in the 1 bedroom and then the kids are staying on the couch or a blow-up mattress? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever lost your temper with the kids?
No, I've lost patience on occasion throughout the years, but there's always been times where I could say I could conduct myself differently, or, in hindsight, look back and thought of handling things differently.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever cursed at the kids or insulted the kids?
No, not that I recall.
Have you ever spoken inappropriately about Miss Lampkin or Justin Dew in front of the kids?
If I had to take a guess, I would say that's more than likely yes, especially early on in the emotional state that I was in. But as far as specifics, I can't recall.
Okay. And you received from the Kate's Diner settlement, you received a large lump sum, correct?
Correct.
Where did that money get spent?
You mean the share that I ended up with? Is that
Correct.
what you're
Now,
asking? Or you talking
let's
about
try.
overall?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Let me backtrack. How much did you get?
We got 218,000, I believe it was,
And what was the amount
after
that
closing
you
costs and
received?
fees.
What was the amount that you received in the settlement?
I believe it's on that transfer, somewhere around 144. I think I heard that number earlier.
Okay. And what have you spent that money on?
Okay, hold on.
Bills.
Ms. Greenlee-Thor, why is this relevant?
Your Honor, he's brought up repeatedly that he has no ability to move into a bigger household or anything, yet what he spent this money on could have been used to buy an entire house, yet he's frankly squandered it.
Well, everybody has a right to squander their money if they want. I don't think what he spent it on is relevant. You could obviously get him to acknowledge he didn't spend it on a new house.
Okay. Did
No,
you
I
spend
did
it on
not.
a new house, sir?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you agree that that's a substantial amount of money that could have essentially bought a house?
Not in this market, not in this town.
Okay. I want to go to the bank statements that we had here. So give me a moment to get the right ones up. I'm going to put up Exhibit 2, and I'm going to go to page 6 of Exhibit 2 if Mr. Schaefer's counting here. So I'm looking at some of the expenditures that you have coming out of this account. And are all these business expenses?
No.
No. So the fragrance outlet, probably not a business expense.
No.
Hilton advance purchase, looks like that's a hotel purchase.
No. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on here. I'm going to go to page 11 here.
And that being said, none of these show up as expenses for taxes either.
Okay, well, I just want to look at some of the expenditures that are coming out
Sure.
here.
Sure.
Trying to find the right page here. There's a lot of things to scroll through. Spirit Halloween, that's not a business expense, right?
Nope.
University of Michigan, also not a business expense.
Nope.
How about Taylor Swift tickets?
No, but I was wondering where that one was at. That was in Taylor Swift was another thing that wasn't that I believe she sold,
Okay.
as well as some others.
So would you agree, without me bringing up your 2023 bank statements, that there's a lot of purchases, for example, at Kate Spade or Nike in the hundreds
Yeah,
of dollars?
those aren't reported or show up as a business expense either.
Okay, my question was, do you agree that those appear, or do you want me to put them up here to show you?
That they appear on the statements?
Correct.
Yeah, that's undeniable.
I'm sorry, I don't understand you. What'd you say?
Yes.
Yes, they appear?
Yes, I've seen those on there.
Okay. When you sit down with your accountant, do you sit down with your accountant and go through all these transactions on your bank statements line by line to determine what's a business expense and what isn't?
Yes, pretty much he does that. There's been
My
many.
question was, do you do that with him?
Yeah, he'll go through with anything that I've didn't add in on my copies of actual receipts or subcontractor 1099s, whatever it is that I don't turn in. He personally goes through with me and asks questions about line items that might be able to be used for deductions.
So he goes back through and it's your understanding, he adds back to your income things like Taylor Swift purchases or $1,000 at the mall.
No. So everything that goes in there as a deposit, for the most part, is considered income into that business account. Now, I do use it for personal bill paying as well as personal expenses throughout the day. But those in no way, shape, or form are listed as deductions. That account is only listed to pick up when I used Hibu, internet, or Rocket Lawyer, things of that nature that I don't have a hard copy bill for that I may have forgotten.
So my question was, you've got a lot of extra expenses, a lot of party store expenses, looks like some racetrack expenses on here, a lot of purchases at the mall, U of M, a lot of those purchases. Are those amounts added back to your income when he's calculating your income on your tax returns?
I do not have an answer to that. I guess I'm wondering if it's not how it would be added back to income when you count the entire deposits that go into that account as income.
Okay,
It sounds like a question from my account.
okay, but you've never checked up on that or figured out how that's working, right?
Yeah. Mathematically, it doesn't sound like it shakes out the way you're delivering it.
What about, I'm gonna go, your attorney pointed out Exhibit 7 here, going down to the March statement, where you took out 10,000 on March 7th, another 10,000 looks like on March 8th, and 8,360 on March 20th. And this is of 2023. And you testified that this was cash that you took out and it went into other bank accounts. Where did it go? How do I find this money? Where'd this go?
I'm sure some of it went into other bank accounts or at some point trickled back in to this, if not this account, because there's cash deposits in here too as well.
So are you saying that you pull cash out of this account and then redeposit it later?
Yeah, there's been many times I've done that over the years.
Okay, why would you do that?
Personal preference.
Well, what you enjoy pulling cash out and putting it back in? For what purpose?
It's a personal preference I have for holding on to my money.
Okay, so you pull it out to spend it, is what you're saying, for your expenses?
Yeah, I use it for spending as well.
Okay.
As for deposits.
So your accountant, when your accountant sees these withdrawals or these checks that were cash, how is your accountant accounting for these?
Well, I mean, cash is still a currency, right?
Yes.
Then if it's gross receipts and gross deposits, pluses and minuses, that'd be a question that I guess I could get an answer to for future.
So if you're telling me that you withdrew 28,360 in March of 2023, you're also telling me you could have also redeposited some of that money later on, but there wouldn't be any record of how to track that for your accountant. So would your accountant be double counting your income?
Yeah, if it's deposited back into that business, it can quite possibly be, I would imagine, be double count. But if you have gross receipts for whatever that may be for deductions, whether it's insurance or whatever other overhead items that you have, cash, credit, whatever it is, it can be accounted for.
Okay, so it sounds like we're just not sure exactly how this is being accounted for. Would you agree with that statement?
No, I'm sure of my accounting. I'm not sure of what answer you're looking for.
I'm trying to account for where this money went. This is $28,000 alone in March of 2023.
Yeah, and I'm sure that in the taxes or in other line items that we have to have for the business, that money shows up.
Okay, but you're just not sure where.
Either way, it shows up as income and deposits in that account is 52,000. So out of that 52,000, what was spent on materials, business expenses, legitimate business expenses that still can be purchased through credit or cash or check.
Okay. Do you have a drinking problem, sir?
No, I do not.
No. I see a lot of transactions on here for Warman Party Store. A lot of transactions on here. What are you buying from Warman's Party Store almost daily or every other day?
I haven't been there in a couple months, I believe, but I don't recall.
Okay, so you would have no idea what you would be getting. Let's just look at the same statement. March 24th and March 27th, around $11, then another $20, then another purchase the next day at Megabev for $25.
No, I don't recall.
Okay. So I see a lot of transactions on here from Megabev as well. Do you frequent that store as well?
It's been a long time since I've been there, but there was a time, yeah.
Okay. When you say there was a time, when was about that time?
I don't recall.
Okay. And when you were frequenting Megabev or Warman's Party Store, were you buying liquor or alcohol?
I would have to say it'd be one or the other.
Okay. So are you in some sort of treatment now for alcohol? Are you dry? Tell me about it.
No, I don't have a problem drinking, so I'm in no treatment.
Okay. So, but you're no longer shopping at Megabev or Warman's almost every day.
No, I like to switch the stores up. I don't always go to the same ones.
Okay. And you believe it's reasonable to be buying liquor every couple days, or if not every other day?
If that was the case, but I don't recall what I was purchasing at those places.
Okay. Is there anything else? I haven't been to Megabev in a long time, but is there anything else like snacks or food or groceries at Megabev?
Yeah, they've got things to eat there.
Okay. Would you ever go there to buy something to eat?
Not purposely.
Okay. What about Warman's Party Store? What kind of What kind of items do they have there?
I'd say just exactly what it sounds like. They've got just the normal alcohol and beverages and everything that a gas station has.
Okay. So if you were going to Warman's, you also wouldn't be buying food or groceries. You'd be buying probably liquor or alcohol and something.
Actually, I do buy quite a bit of food from Mormons.
Okay. Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions at this time. Thank you.
Sir, you had mentioned that that you had seen the two younger kids, but you'd not seen Delaney for, you said the last couple months. When you say last couple months, are we talking 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, what?
Your Honor, I would have to look at our text thread to have a closer date. But I would say 2 months, maybe a month and a half. That I've actually, through the text, I've got to see her at like the sporting events and say hi.
Okay, so you're including those events, seeing those as in addition to any times you would have had them in your care.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't hear the entirety of the question.
When I asked about seeing the children, you said, and you mentioned, and different events. So the time that you're talking about seeing the children is also times you had them in your care and times that you had them at basketball game, soccer game, some other activity.
Yeah, so I've been able to talk to my daughters since then. I got to see her yesterday, as a matter of fact.
Let's go to 2023 since this action was filed. And in this case, prior to these last couple months, so let's say that takes us back through October. From January to October, how many times had you had Delaney in your care on an overnight basis?
I can't recall. I can't say that she's never overnight with me. She stayed late or hung out with me late, but never overnight.
So never overnight during that approximate 10 months?
No.
How about Sadie during that same time? How often had you had her on an overnight basis from January to October 2023?
I do not call the exact number, Your Honor. Obviously not nearly as much as I would like, but I will say that my daughters are a little bit more particular on wanting to be in their own or natural environment, if that's the way of putting it, being the house they grew up in. So it's a little bit harder to.
Okay, well, give me an estimate. Are we talking with Sadie? Are we talking half a dozen overnights? Are we talking 30 overnights?
I would say whatever my wife said was she's pretty good with numbers. You know, those sound pretty good or pretty accurate.
Okay, and that would be true with relation to your son as well.
I really don't. I don't know about that one. I feel like I've got more than that, but I mean, if the other two are about on, then I would say that is too.
Okay.
It's, the actual waking up at my apartment versus staying late or taking them home because they want to go home and sleep in their own beds.
Yeah, I think that was the only question I had then. Mr. Schaefer, any redirect?
Yes, thank you, Judge. You were being quizzed about your drinking habits. From today going backward, when's the last time you had an alcoholic drink?
This New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
And prior to New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, when's the last time you had an alcoholic drink?
Early November.
And before early November, when's the last time you had alcoholic drink?
April 26th.
April 26th. Why does that date stick out in your mind?
It's my birthday.
Your birthday. Are your drinking habits at this point in time excessive?
No.
Okay. And indicated by your wife's testimony, you've never been convicted of a drunk driving or anything of that sort?
No, sir.
Was the drinking issue something your wife was quite concerned about, or at least she reacted to during your marriage?
There were times where I can say that it attributed to maybe the escalation in a discussion or argument. But I do know that I drank and she didn't for the most part, so it just bothered. I know that it was just something that bothered her. Period. With no dependency on the amount, I guess you could say.
In relation to your children, you see your children. I take it from your answers that you hang out with your children at times at your apartment. Is that correct?
Correct.
And sometimes they stay late.
Yes, there's been times where I don't try to keep them out too late. If they do want to go home, I try to get them home at a decent time. There's been a couple times where Jesse's running late or doing something, and I'll have one of them, and it'll be later when she swings through, and I say later, 10:30.
All right. Have you accommodated the wishes of your children as to where they want to sleep?
In my apartment?
In your apartment or at the Orchard Lake residence?
As far as getting them back home?
Yes.
Yes.
So if they tell you they want to go home to sleep in Orchard Lake, you will accommodate them there?
Of course.
Do you find that they are apprehensive of making those requests to you or not?
No, they'll tell me, and it's just like if they call and they want me to pick them up from a friend's house and just take them straight home, they know that I'll come and get them and do it.
In relation to the discussion that went on about your wife having the affair, she had made the comment earlier that you had told her that there was an open marriage and basically said that you encouraged her to do so. Is that accurate?
Absolutely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee, Clark, anything else? I'll read.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm going to inquire of Jesus whether or not we have anybody in the waiting room.
We do. We have Amy Nelson, James Nelson, Aiden Lampin, and Bill and Michelle Desmet.
We apparently have everybody here.
Well, okay, then I would call James Nelson to the stand.
Okay, sir, just as before we get into some questions, I'll let you know that sometimes you may not hear the question. You can ask the attorneys to repeat that because sometimes it goes in and out a little bit, and so it's not clear. I don't want you answering anything you're not clear about answering, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Schaefer.
Your Honor, I don't find him on the screen. I hear him well, but I don't see him. Is he coming up on your screen?
No.
Please excuse this interruption because this is I can't help it. Like as I type that comment, I'm in tears laughing and it's not that funny, but I have to share my ridiculousness with you. And please don't come after me about using the word boomer. Like I mean no harm, and I know some people are offended, but he is the epitome. Like he's just the epitome. Oh, I'm crying.
He's appearing, I think, by phone. Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Sir, I'll just ask you, are you driving somewhere?
I'm parked right now.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
Mr. Nelson, where do you live?
I live in Marshall.
And do you know the Lampkins?
Yes.
And how do you know them?
Say that again?
How do you know them?
I've known Clyde for a very long time, about 30 years. I've known him since high school.
And do you know Mrs. Lampkin?
Yes.
And do you know there are 3 minor children that are with them now?
Yes.
And have you had occasion to see Clyde with the children?
Yes, numerous times.
And how often would you see Clyde with the children?
At least every 2 weeks.
And where would it be that you would see them?
Normally at his house. Occasionally, maybe once a year we might go out to dinner, something like that. But usually at his house.
And would that be the house on Orchard Lake Drive?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen, when's the last time you've seen Clyde and the children together?
I seen him with little Robbie about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Clyde's been a little sick, so I haven't been going around him too much lately.
Okay. And what was the occasion that you saw Robbie and Clyde about 3 weeks ago?
They were just hanging out. It wasn't really an occasion.
Okay. What observations have you made as to the relationship that Clyde and his children have when you've seen them together?
From what I see, they have a good relationship. I know Clyde is really trying with his kids, with everything that they are going through. But other than that, I really don't have any more information.
Okay. Did you ever see anything inappropriate going on when you saw Clyde with the kids?
No, not at all.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee, Thor, any cross?
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, do you remember an incident back in February of 2020?
You'd have to elaborate on that.
An incident where Mr. Lampkin had taken Aiden to several bars, and you appeared at the former marital home.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you relay what happened?
I ended up running into Clyde and Aiden, and we just had some food, and Jessie showed up at the restaurant that we were at, and she was very upset that Rob had been drinking. But Rob wasn't driving when I seen him. He was walking. They were walking downtown. And she, in my opinion, kind of blew it out of proportion and told Aiden that he's going home with her, and they left.
Okay, so Jessica took Aiden home, and then did you bring Rob home?
I actually brought him to my house to spend the night because Jessie was pretty upset with him. But no, I didn't bring him home that night.
So you don't remember watching Rob swear at Jessie at his house before she insisted that you take Rob back to your home?
I don't recall, honestly.
Is it possible that could happen and you just don't remember?
Possibility, but no, I don't. I'm not remembering that exact date. I'm not sure.
Do you remember witnessing Mr. Lampkin grabbing guns and cash out of a safe and putting them in your car to drive them to your house? And
Relevance of that, Your Honor?
What?
Objection? Relevance?
Yeah, I think it directly has to go with Mr. Lampkin's drinking issues and the moral
Grabbing cash
parties.
and guns in a car? What? I'm not sure that has relevance to anything.
Well, probably, maybe doesn't. I'll allow it though. Go ahead.
Do I remember that?
Yeah, at any point in time.
Yes.
Okay. Could that have been February of 2020?
I'm not sure of the date, honestly.
Okay. So you do recall him being intoxicated, grabbing guns and cash out of a safe, putting them in your car, and you driving Rob to your home, correct?
No, he didn't leave with me.
No? Where did he go after pulling the guns and the money out?
I don't remember. I thought he stayed there.
Okay. Do you ever remember taking Rob to your house and then having him leave your house and walk? I guess it's about 3 miles between your house and his home, and walk home to go back to Jessie?
That was the night I thought you were referring to when I brought him back to my house. He did come to my house one night, and no, I didn't have him leave. He ended up leaving on his own and walking back home.
Okay. Do you know if the police were involved that day?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Do you have any idea when he left that day?
It was sometime during the night. We went to bed and he ended up leaving.
Okay. And was he intoxicated that day?
By that time, I would say that he had sobered up a little bit, but prior to that, yes.
Okay. And have you ever witnessed him be verbally aggressive or towards Jessica?
Depends on the situation, but yes.
Okay. Have you ever seen him act that way in front of his kids?
No, not excessively aggressive. No.
In the last year, how many times have you seen the kids? You've seen the kids.
Have I seen the kids?
Yeah.
I've seen Delaney once, and about 4 months ago. I've seen little Robbie a few times, probably 5 or 6 times, and I've seen Sadie a couple times. We actually went out to dinner or lunch with Sadie and Clyde and his brother and some other people.
Okay, so you don't have regular contact with the kids in the last year anyway?
Not here recently, no.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Schaefer, any redirect?
Yeah, just a couple. Have you ever seen Jessica aggressive toward Clyde?
That night at the bar when they were walking downtown, yes.
She was aggressive toward him at that point?
Yeah, like I said, I felt like it was a little out of hand at that time.
Good. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nelson, thank you for your testimony and your excuse. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Next witness, Mr. Schaefer.
Amy Nelson. And Amy, do you know Clyde Lampkin?
I do.
You know Jessica?
I do.
You know their 3 minor kids?
I do.
Okay. How long have you known Clyde?
23 years, 24 years.
Have you had occasion to see him in the presence of his 3 minor kids over those years?
I have.
And could you state to the court what observations you've made in that regard as to their relationship?
He has been very attentive with his kids. He's very playful with them. Anytime that I've seen him with them, he's been mindful of them. He's really more playful.
Okay. Have you ever seen anything inappropriate going on with him and the kids?
Inappropriate? No.
And in the last year, how many times have you seen him with the kids?
I have not seen him with, can I state their names?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I have not seen him with Delaney in the past year. I've seen him once with Sadie and once with little Robbie.
And where were you at when you saw him with Sadie and Robbie?
That was separately. We were, I was out to dinner with them on 2 separate occasions.
Okay. And did they, how would you describe their relationship with their father on those 2 separate occasions?
They were talking with them. He was responsive to them. They seemed to have a good relationship. There was no issues noted or felt.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenleaf-Fleur?
Thank you. Ms. Long Nelson, do you recall an incident in February of 2020 where Mr. Lampkin and Aiden were at a bar and Mr. Lampkin might have been intoxicated and you were also there and there was an incident? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. What happened with that incident?
At the bar?
Well, how about when at home? Did you go to the Lampkin home that evening?
I did go to the Lampkin home that evening.
What happened at the Lampkin home?
Aiden was not there he was in the home, but he wasn't outside of the home. There was some issues between Jesse and Rob. There was verbal altercations. There was, he kept walking in and out of the, into the garage and out of the garage. My husband went into the garage with him. I stayed with Jesse. Jesse discussed some of the issues that were going on with him. And her being upset, Rob came back in. He did yell and went back out. I believe he came home with us at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Do you recall Mr. Lampkin pulling cash and guns out of a safe and putting them in your vehicle to take to your home that night?
I did not witness this happen, but they were in my car, yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much cash we're talking about?
I do not.
Okay. Was Mr. Lampkin intoxicated?
Yes.
Did you witness him be verbally abusive towards Jessica?
I believe they both yelled back and forth to each other. Yes,
Okay, all right.
it was not healthy.
Nothing further.
Mr. Schaefer, any redirect?
Just briefly, last statement, are you saying they both were aggressive and abusive toward each other at that meeting?
Yes, they were both aggressive towards each other.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Clore, anything? Anything? No?
Nothing further for this witness.
Okay. Ms. Nelson, that concludes your testimony. Thank you. You are excused and have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Schaefer.
William, where are you at right now?
We're actually in Coronado, California.
And don't tell the judge, but you were rooting for Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the Lampkins?
Yes.
How long have you known them?
We moved to the house, I think, 2018. So I think it's going on, it's 5 years, probably 5.5 years.
Did you live near where they lived?
We live right next door.
Right next door. Did
Yep.
you have occasion to observe the 3 minor children and Clyde on various occasions?
Yes.
And how often would you see them together?
Outside in the backyard, usually mostly in the summertime, spring, fall, not as much in the winter.
And what observations did you make as to the relationship of these 3 minor kids and Clyde?
Positive. They would interact and play games, go out on the boat, do different things like that.
Yeah. And did you ever see anything inappropriate?
No, sir.
Did they seem to have a good relationship?
Yes. From what I can see, yes.
Okay. Where are you employed?
I work for Financial One Accounting out of Plymouth, Michigan.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee-Clore, any cross-examination?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Well, Mr. DeSmith, that looks like that's all your testimony. If you get your wife in, we'll have her testify. Thank you.
Perfect. Will do. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Schaefer.
Michelle, do you know Jessica and Clyde Lampkin?
Yes.
And how long have you known them?
About 4 or 5 years since we moved into the house next door to theirs.
Okay. And have you had occasions to see Clyde and the 3 minor children with him?
Yes.
Have you seen them react to each other?
Yes.
And what's your observations as to what bond they may have?
My thought is that Rob always seemed like a good father. We would often see them out in the yard playing, going out on the boat. They always seemed, I don't know, friendly, family to each other.
Yeah. When is the last time you've seen Rob with the kids?
I'm honestly not sure. Probably a few weeks ago, I think he stopped in front of the house, I think to pick up one of the kids. I'm assuming to take them to sports, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you have occasion to see the kids at their sporting events with their parents there?
I have not.
Okay. Have you ever seen anything inappropriate going on between Clyde and the 3 minor children?
No, never.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee-Clore, any questions?
Yes, have you ever seen Mr. Lampkin intoxicated?
Not that I know of.
Besides him picking up a child a few weeks ago, when was the time before that you'd seen him present at the marital home?
I'm not certain that I could say. I only notice when I'm outside, so I'm not sure.
Do you know, besides that pickup, when the last time you saw him and the kids together?
No.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, any redirect?
No redirect. Thank
Okay.
you, Michelle.
Ms. DeSmith, that concludes your testimony. Thank you. You're excused. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. Next witness, Mr. Schaefer.
I have no further witnesses to call, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, do you rest, Mr. Schaefer?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Go back to you, Ms. Greenlee-Clore.
I'd like to call Aiden Lampkin, who should be in the waiting room.
Okay. Sir, if at any point you can't hear the question or you need it repeated, please ask that the attorney would do that so that you only answer questions that you heard and understand, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. or Ms. Greenlee-Clore.
Thank you. Aiden, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, Aiden. Can you describe what is your relationship to Jessica Lampkin and Mr. Lampkin, Clyde Lampkin?
Jessica is my mom and Clyde is my dad.
Okay, and how old are you, Aiden?
I am 20.
Okay, and where are you living?
I'm living in Albion with one of my friends.
Okay, are you in school or anything?
No, just working.
Just working? Okay. How would you describe your dad's parenting style?
I would say it was rough. Dealt with a lot of emotional and verbal abuse. With him, it didn't feel more so like parenting. It just felt like I was just there, I guess.
Okay. Was he, so let's break this down. Was he ever physically violent with you?
Yes, not like in the terms of hitting, but grabbing at the back of the neck, the ear, getting in my face, like physical stuff like that, but no actual hitting.
Okay. Have you ever seen him do the same things to your younger siblings?
No.
Okay. What about verbal aggression? Has he been verbally aggressive towards you?
Yes, me and the whole family, that was probably the majority of what we had dealt with.
Okay. Can you give an example of what kind of verbal aggression you're talking about?
Just like cussing us out. If, he didn't like something that we did, it was just, I'm trying to think of how I could put it. He would spend a lot of time cussing at us through just, I guess, anger. I don't know. It was the entirety of my childhood, so it's kind of hard to put a pin on certain, points.
Okay. And he's the same with your younger siblings, correct?
What was that?
Let me rephrase that. Have you witnessed him yelling or cussing at your younger siblings?
Yes.
Okay. How often was that?
I'd say it wasn't like a daily thing, but it happened multiple times a week at least.
Okay. Were you or are you fearful of him?
I'm not anymore, but I was my entire time growing up in the house with him.
Do you remember your father drinking excessively?
Yes. It was almost every night. It was always some type of drink in his hand.
Mm-hmm. So when you say some type of drink, are we talking about beer, liquor?
Yeah, usually beer. He would use hard liquor too, but it was usually beer.
Okay. Did you ever witness him being verbally aggressive or physically aggressive towards your mom?
Yes.
Okay. What kind?
More so verbally. They would, he would get in fights. I'd say we were able to kind of tell like when he was drinking, and just random things would be brought up and they would cause a big dispute between him and her. And so I'd try to do my best to just keep out of those.
Okay. Do you remember an incident that might have occurred in February of 2020 where you were at a bar or a bar restaurant with your dad?
Yes. So I believe my dad took me out to go see a movie, and we went to 2 or 3 different bars before my mom had come in and pick me up. He was bar hopping and drinking at each bar. And then he went over to his friend's house, James and Amy. And my mom took me home then. And at that point, he'd been drinking a lot, and then it got late, and I believe he was heading home or like walking home in the middle of the night.
I'm going to object to the speculation unless he has personal knowledge.
Sustained, Mr. Lampkin, all you can do is testify as to what you observed, what you saw. You can't speculate as to what happened that you didn't.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I was there with him for like hopping around for 2 to 3 bars, and then my mom came and picked me up.
Okay. Did he show up in the middle of the night back at the house?
Yes, he did.
What happened when he showed back up at the house?
My mom, me, and all my siblings, we were all in her bedroom, and we locked the door. And I'm not entirely sure what time it was. But we were sitting in there, we heard, the front door open, slam shut, and then he like immediately came back to the back room and tried to open the door. And so we were all just in there, huddled together.
Mm-hmm. Did the police come?
No, but I believe the police were called. We did call the cops and let them know.
Okay. Were you fearful? Was everyone in mom's room because you guys were fearful of him?
Yeah. I remember me and my sisters, we were crying, and we were scared. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that evening witnessing your dad taking cash and guns out of a safe?
I did not witness it, no.
Okay. What kind of relationship do you think, in your opinion, do your siblings have towards your dad? Do they love him?
I feel it's very strained. I can't speak for them per se, but I'd say through the experiences they have, that it's, for me, I know I don't. And like I said, for them, I couldn't really say.
Do you still have any contact with your dad?
No, I haven't spoken with him in over a year.
Okay. Is there anything else you think this court should know?
Not that I can think of. Everything I've relayed is
Okay.
what I'd like to talk about.
All right. Thank you, Aiden. There might be some more questions for you. Okay. So hold on.
Okay.
Yep. Mr. Schaefer, any cross-examination?
Yes.
Of course.
On this occasion in February of 20, how do you remember the date?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
I don't remember the date.
Okay, so when you answered the question, you didn't, if it wasn't suggested to
Well,
you, you wouldn't know what day it was.
I don't remember the specific date, but I know it was around that time.
Okay, and you are 20 now, so you would have been 16 then, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that whatever night this happened, your dad never came back in the house, he stayed in the garage?
No, he came back in the house.
Back in the house, all right. And for your testimony today, did you talk to your mom about it?
Yes.
When did you talk to your mom about
it? A few hours ago. Just basically we were talking about like specific times that we had things happen, things that might be brought up. There were multiple.
Okay. Did you talk to your mom's attorney?
No.
And so you weren't contacted about your testimony until today sometime, is that correct?
Yes.
And when is the last time that you have seen your siblings with your dad?
I believe that would be December of last year.
Last year meaning 22 rather than 20 or 23?
Of 22, I believe. Yes, 22.
Were you present at the time that the disclosures about your mother's affair were discussed with the children?
No, I was in college.
You were in college?
Yes, I was in college.
Okay, so but you were aware of the affair that your mother had?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and how did you learn about that?
I was contacted by, no, I was back home for Christmas break, and that's when I found out everything that had transpired.
Okay, and did your mother admit to you that she had had an affair during the marriage?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a relationship with your siblings?
Yes, I do.
But you apparently have no relationship with your father?
Yes.
Yes, you don't have a relationship?
Yes, I do not have a relationship. Yes.
Yep. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee-Thor, any redirect?
Just briefly, Aiden, when you say that you haven't seen the other kids since December, do you mean this past Christmas or the last Christmas?
Sorry, did you ask? I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. I thought you said when I last saw them together with my dad. I've seen my siblings throughout the entirety of the past year.
Okay, when was the last time you saw them?
That was not Christmas Day. That was New Year's. But I've spent the majority of Christmas break with them around that area.
Okay, so just a couple weeks ago or a week or 2
Yeah.
weeks ago. Okay, all right. I just want to clarify that. And when Mr. Schaefer asked you about this affair, has your dad ever spoken to you about this affair?
he's said certain things about it in text, I believe, with me. I haven't talked with him in person since that has really transpired.
When you say certain things, what kind of things was he saying? Was he putting down your mom?
Yes, he was putting her down, saying that, she was a terrible person for cheating, and lots of mean and hurtful, I guess, sentences and words, but not any that I can recall off the top of my head.
Do you know if he said any of the same things to your siblings?
I believe so. I have talked with my siblings.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. It sounds like hearsay.
Okay, sustained. Mr. Lampkin, you can't say what somebody else has told you, only what you've observed or heard, okay?
Okay, gotcha.
So let me rephrase that. Have you seen your dad say anything to your siblings negative about your mom?
No.
You've never heard your dad say anything negative to any of the other siblings about your mom?
I haven't lived or been close to him since I moved out for college. So all the times he was around my siblings is when it was, I wasn't there.
Okay. What about before you moved out? Did he ever say negative things to you or the other kids that you witnessed about your mom?
Yeah. I believe the entire time that I was growing up, like, he did put her down, or like when she wasn't around us, he would just talk about, like, say terrible things about her in front of the siblings and me. And so I think it's just whenever we were away from her.
Did you ever witness your mom say anything negative or mean about your dad to you or your siblings?
Not really. I believe everything I've experienced growing up with them and her, she's just wanted the best for us, and she didn't want to have to put us through that. And as far as I know, I can't remember any time of her really putting him down.
Okay. And just to be clear for the record, you and I have never spoken before, right?
Yes.
Yes, we have, or no, we haven't?
Yeah, no, we haven't. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Schaefer, any recross?
Yes. You're saying your mom has never said anything negative to you about your dad?
I mean, we have not like negative in the way that he puts her down. It's more so just like things that she says, like, I can't believe, she's done this, or just certain things like that. She hasn't put him down in the way that he was doing it.
Tell me the way that she has put him down, if it's not the same way. What did she say?
She just said, like, why does he do this to us? It's just, I'm just trying to think of instances where, like, I don't remember much of him or her saying anything bad about him. Just about, like, stuff that she would say would be about, like, his drinking problems and, like, like, we need to get help and this isn't right. We shouldn't have to deal with this type of thing.
Did your mom ever talk to you about the subject of your dad's girlfriend?
No.
Do you know your dad has a girlfriend?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you know that?
Because you mean his current girlfriend?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, she had talked to me about that more so.
Okay.
Recently.
So she had talked to you about your dad's girlfriend. Is it all positive about that?
Wasn't necessarily positive. She was just telling me what was happening. I didn't have much conversations with her about, like, them talking or like, she was just keeping me updated with what was happening with him and his family, or not his family, but him and his girlfriend.
What non-positive things did she tell you about the girlfriend?
I can't really think of anything that she said negative about the girlfriend. Like I said, we haven't talked much about him and the girlfriend. Like, I keep a distance from all that because I didn't want to involve myself in it, because I just didn't have the time or energy to deal with it.
But apparently you had the time and energy to come and tell us about this today, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I take it that you have not seen your dad with the siblings for how long? It was a little unclear because you may have misunderstood the question, but when's the last time that you saw your dad with the siblings?
Last time I saw my dad with the siblings was the Christmas of 2022.
Okay. And where was it that you saw him with the siblings?
In his duplex that he was living in at the time.
So did you go over there to visit him for Christmas then?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the last time.
That's the last time I went and saw him in person, yes.
No further questions, Aaron.
Okay. Mr. Lampkin, that will conclude your testimony. Thank you. You're excused. Have a good day.
Of course, thank you, you too.
Next witness, Mr. Schaefer. Oh, no, I missed Ms. Greenlee-Clark.
No other witnesses, Your Honor.
You arrest?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, any rebuttal?
I guess just briefly, I'd call my client.
Okay. Mr. Lampkin, you're still under oath. You understand that?
Whatever date this was when you,
Mr. Schaefer, we can't hear you. You have to speak up.
all right, whatever date this was that being related when you went home with Mr. Nelson, then came back to the home. Do you recall that date?
I do not recall the actual date.
Do you recall the event?
I do.
Did you ever go back into the house after returning home?
When I returned home later that night, yes, I went home and went to sleep.
Did you ever confront anybody in any room in the back?
No.
And was Jessica verbally aggressive and upset toward you on that occasion?
She was.
And was the whole issue the bar issue, or were there other issues involved?
No, I just believe it was the issue that I had brought him home or got him home. It was the main issue.
Okay. And how old would Aiden have been at that time?
If it was 2020, then 16. You'd be getting ready to turn 17 in March.
Okay. And Aiden says that you and he don't have any relationship at the present time. Is that accurate?
That is.
Okay.
I didn't hear you, sir.
It is.
And he had made some statements that you were verbally abusive toward the other siblings in the home. Do you recall any event along those lines?
Absolutely not.
I don't think we heard any of that, Mr. Schaefer.
Okay, so try it again. We had heard testimony from Aiden that he said that you were verbally abusive toward his siblings. Is there any truth to that statement?
Absolutely not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Greenlee-Clark, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, looks like that concludes the testimony in this particular matter. So we'll go to any closing argument. Ms. Greenlee-Clark.
Thank you. Your Honor, I'm going to renew my opening statement here. I think we've heard adequate testimony today about Mr. Lampkin's parenting abilities and his lack of contact with the minor children. We just heard from one of those children, and this court has already interviewed the other 3 children regarding his drinking, him being negative towards the kids, abusive, verbally abusive, sometimes physically abusive with him, but verbally abusive to all of them, and a general sense of fear in the household. Excuse me. This is one of those rare cases where sole legal and sole physical custody is appropriate. Mr. Lampkin has not only had barely any contact with these kids over the last year, he's also has no ability to have that contact going forward. He has a 1-bedroom apartment. He really hasn't prioritized having the kids. He's gotten lump sums of money where he could have easily gotten a new residence or put something down on a residence that would have adequate sleeping facilities for the kids, and hasn't prioritized them in any capacity. We believe that going through the best interest factors, it's clear. Mom is the established custodial parent. There's an established custodial environment with her. She's the primary parent. The children look to her for their everyday needs, shelter, food, clothing, and see father on occasion. And sometimes father can be a scary guy. Father has a drinking problem. The next issue is that the child support issue. My client has easy income. She earns a salary of $84,000. She pays about $300 per month in insurance costs, including health, dental, and vision. And that includes, that's just for the 3 kids. So that's their portion, not her portion. That's just their portion. If we look at dad's income is a little bit more complicated. I'm not entirely clear exactly what he's trying to claim his income is, whether that's the exact 22,000 or whether he's trying to say that we should add anything back in, because I really didn't hear any testimony for that. But I can see clearly from his bank statements that there's a lot of money going in and out of his bank accounts that's not accounted for. We heard direct testimony that within 1 month, he withdrew $28,060 in cash and couldn't really tell us where that went. And that was in 2023. I'm looking at my Exhibit 7, the Huntington bank statement. We're looking at him expending money, $600 at an Oakley store. This is within 1 day, $600 at an Oakley store, $250 at Kate Spade, another $200 at Vera Bradley, another cash withdrawal the same day of $855. The amount of money that he spends directly contradicts what he's claiming he's earning. We can see from his bank statements, and this court can certainly review those, that he's paying for vacations to Sandals Resort, Hilton hotels. He's going to the racetrack. He's going to liquor stores. His spending far outpaces what he's trying to claim his income is. My client diligently went through all of those bank statements to see exactly what were the deposits. And when she found out what that was, she was shocked. In 2022, he deposited $450,000. And so far in 2023, based on the information we have through September, no, we only have through September, he had deposited, I believe it was almost another $213,000, and that's just what we found. As my client stated, he often dealt on a cash basis. He frequently had cash around. He clearly had cash in a safe in 2020, and he himself testified that he frequently withdrew cash and liked to have cash around. So that it sounds like often there was other income there that we're not even accounting for. We're asking this court to calculate child support based on 0 overnights for dad. And we're asking for his income to be stated as $350,000 per year. My client's income to be stated at $84,000 per year. No childcare and health insurance that my client is paying of $300 per month. And we're asking for the Michigan child support formula. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Schaefer.
Well, let me deal with the income issue first. It's amazing that people jump to the conclusion that a gross figure is income. If one looks at Exhibit A and B, and I respectfully ask the court to review Schedule C, which is the business income. A contractor has substantial expenses. Number one, he has cost of materials. He has cost of labor. He has overhead costs of liability insurance on all of the equipment, upkeep, and so that is part of things that need to be deducted appropriately for income. Those who work for somebody else get a paycheck. Their employer are the ones who bear the brunt of the expenses. I respectfully ask the court to review the 22. There was $189,000 plus of gross income. And then look at what the deductions are: cost of labor, cost of supplies, expenses, and reduces it to $22,000. I think anybody in business for themselves would love to have the gross figure as their income, but that is not the case in this matter. And it's too simplistic to say, I'm going to take 4 accounts where there's money coming in and out, add them all up together, and thus that is income. It is not. And it's something that should not be grasped upon. These people spent a lot of money when they were together. They outlived what they earned. Mrs. Lampkin said they lived a lavish style. Take the 22 joint account, 22. That's when Mrs. Lampkin was partaking in out to eat every night. That's when she was participating, going to shows and to arenas. Is when she was scalping $1,000 tickets for Swifties, making extra money. It is a time when they were paying for trips, educational trips for the kids. Go through the 22s. And there's money on a regular monthly basis that are being paid for the kids. Take into consideration that they outspend what they made, and they ended up with in excess of $60,000 worth of credit card debt that had to be dealt with. that's where a lot of this money came from, is that they charged on the credit cards that had to be ultimately paid when some of their investments got liquidated and it got changed. Look at the deposits. They coincide with a lot of things. They coincide with payment of Kate's. It coincide with the payment of 5 rentals that they had over the time. Capital gains was declared on Exhibit A and B. It's part of doing business. If you have an increase, you get to pay taxes on it. You get to deduct your out-of-pocket expenses. You pay for the net, and that's what the circumstances are. Take into consideration that the testimony is that there was $40,000 worth of loans that ended up in the deposit in these accounts. To simply go through and say, oh, all the deposits ends up in income for the defendant, I think that is inappropriate. Likewise, in 22, when a lot of these evidence things came through, Mrs. Lampkin says, fine, and signed the tax returns prepared by an accountant under perjury that they were accurate. And now she comes in because it's going to benefit her. She's trying to benefit her. Oh, that had not been right, but I signed them anyway. And let's take the gross figure. If she looked at that, she'd argue that the 189 figure that was the gross income was the income that should be attributed to Mr. Lampkin. It just is not accurate. It's not business the way it is. It's not what the income is. The income of Mr. Lampkin, and it hasn't even been argued by opposing counsel, there are always some add-ins on these deductions, such as depreciation, but that's a small number. That's like a $1,200 number on Exhibit A. I respectfully ask the court to review that. In relation to the important part is the relationship of my client and his kids. Contrary to the argument, he has seen these kids weekly, many times during the week, and has attended and take them out to eat, has met with them, has gone to their events. He has paid support for them. Admittedly, he's paid $1,000 a month for some 11 months in relation to this particular matter. It is unfair and inaccurate to suggest he's an absentee father. He is not an absentee father. He is a father that is trying to deal with 3 teenagers. When the 3 teenagers are getting the benefit of my client of staying in the marital home under the guise and the influence of their mother at this point in time, who talks to them about everything according to her testimony, including the girlfriend, including whatever she has told them about her affair, and she takes the position, well, it's always somebody else's fault, including the affair that I am in. It's my husband's fault because he said, we're going to have an open marriage, which is denied. All of these cases are not a bed of roses, and this certainly is not one. But we have 3 teenage kids with a father who cares, who has a good relationship with these kids, who is doing what he feels in their best interest now of limiting the overnights, but increasing the daily contact with them in this regard. I respectfully ask that there should be joint legal and physical custody of these 3 kids with the parents. They have spent their 16 years or their 13 years or their 15 years raising these kids, and they apparently have done some things right. These kids are doing well in school. That's a plus to both of them. They are at a point where their parents are not getting along, that they're separating, they're going to be divorced, but they're still going to be parents for the rest of their life. And my client has expressed and indicated that he wants to be an active parent, and we're asking that there be joint legal and physical custody, that the parenting time at this point in time be a situation where it goes to the benefit of the kids, and with an anticipation that there is going to be a housing situation that's going to be better for my client once the debt gets off and he's able to finance a home. Your Honor, these people need some co-parenting counseling. for the benefit of the kids. And I respectfully ask the court to consider ordering that so that they can talk to each other. Also, I respectfully ask the court to do a exemption under the PPO to allow these people to talk to each other. If they can't talk to each other, it's not going to be very successful. The actions of Mrs. Lampkin, for whatever reason, is contrary to what should have been done. At this point in time, there is no order in effect, so that both parents should have been consulted about consulting. Apparently, the 16-year-old, I would suggest, is going through some emotional things that she's come out of the closet at this point in time. That needs to be talked about. That needs to be dealt with by support from both of their parents. They need to talk to each other in that regard. So my request is that they be allowed to talk to each other under the PPO and that they get joint counseling for co-parenting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Greenlee, Thor, anything else?
Your Honor, as far as Mr. Lampkin's income goes, I think in addition to what we're seeing here, I still don't have a number from Mr. Schaefer that he wants to put down for Mr. Lampkin's income. But again, this court needs to consider the expenditures and that he's gone on vacations 6 times that we know of this year, lavish out of the country vacations. And we're more charged to his account. That's not a $22,000 income, or even if you add $22,000 plus the deductions income, that's an extraordinarily bigger income tax bracket to be able to afford those kinds of vacations or taking that amount of time off of work to travel places. So I think it's important to note that. We heard testimony from Aiden Lampkin, the party's adult son. I think Mr. Lampkin is in severe danger of having his relationship with these 3 younger kids go the same direction his relationship with his adult son has gone. And that's on him. That's based on his actions and his behavior. We've heard a lot of hounding on Jessica for her relationship with someone new, while Mr. Lampkin himself is living with someone new and in fact started seeing her before the parties even separated. I think that's a red herring. I don't think it's relevant to either of these people's cases today. But I think Mr. Lampkin's drinking certainly reflects poorly on his morality or ability to take care of these minor children. And again, I would restate everything I stated in my first closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the trial in this matter. What happens is both the attorneys in their arguments had asked that the court would consider the exhibits, and they're pretty substantial. I do want to go through those and obviously to go through all of the testimony again to prepare my particular ruling in this matter. So what we'll do is we're not obviously and unfortunately not going to be able to conclude today. The court will review all of that, and then we'll come back next Friday, which is the date that we have scheduled. The court will at that time give a ruling at that particular time. So thank you all for being here and attending, and good afternoon to everyone in this matter. Court will note that this matter is before the court today for the ruling stemming from the trial which took place on January 5th, 2024, which was concluded on that date as well. I would first let the parties know in this case that both of your attorneys did an excellent job in representing you, and they basically presented the case as in a very good fashion, and based upon what was presented, the court does note that they did present what the court was needed for purposes of deciding this particular matter. First, the court will find that the testimony did establish the statutory breakdown of the marital relationship, so the court will grant the divorce in this case. Court will note that credibility is always a consideration in every case. Oftentimes, a party will allege that the other party or one of their witnesses was not truthful or was lying, and the court has found that inconsistencies in testimony do not always mean that an individual had lied. Conflicting testimony can occur as a result of a witness's background, perception, bias, understanding, misunderstanding, or simply mistake. When inconsistencies occur, the court will attempt to determine if they can be reconciled with other testimony or evidence. There was some conflicting testimony in this case, but not more than what the court would normally see. The court will assess the credibility of the witnesses and evidence that was presented in this particular case. Court will note that much of the testimony the court heard was self-serving without corroboration, and this makes the court's job much more difficult in making a ruling. Court will note that the parties were married on December 11, 2004, that the action was filed on January 30, 2023, there was a proof of service of this action on 4/7/23, and a default having been entered on 5/24/2023. Defendant's attorney filed a motion to set aside the default and an appearance on August 23, 2023. Then the motion hearing was held on August 28, 2023. The court entered an order subsequent to this on September 6, 2023, which sent the case to mediation and held that defendant's motion was in abeyance pending mediation. The defendant's motion to set aside the default was not filed for over 4 months after service in this particular case. The default was properly entered pursuant to MCR 2.603. Subsection D of this court rule provides that court can set aside a default upon a showing of good cause. Defendant has alleged that the good cause that existed because the parties were negotiating a resolution of the disputed matters after the default was entered. The court does not find this to amount to good cause sufficient to set aside the default. Defendant has asserted a claim for spousal support, and I state that there, as I stated previously, there are consequences to a default. Due to the default having been entered and the court finding that good cause to set aside the default does not exist, the court finds that defendant's claim for spousal support is extinguished and foreclosed by the default. Aside from the default, the court will state that I was not convinced that defendant has a claim for spousal support pursuant to Michigan Compiled Laws 552.23 and the factors identified in Sparks v. Sparks at 440 Mich 141, a 1992 case. The matter really is before the court for custody, parenting time, and support. The court will note the parties have 3 minor children, Delaney 16, Sadie 15, and Clyde 13. Custody is governed by the Child Custody Act, MCL 722.21 et sec. Pursuant to Michigan Compiled Law 722.26a, parents shall be advised of joint custody, and the court shall consider an award of joint custody. The court shall consider whether joint custody is in the best interest of the children pursuant to MCL 722.23, which we will examine in a moment. And subsection B, whether the parties will be able to cooperate and generally agree upon important decisions affecting the welfare of the child. However, the first task that the court has in any case is to determine whether an established custodial environment exists. An established custodial environment exists if over an appreciable time, the children naturally look to the custodian in that environment for guidance, discipline, necessities of life, and parental comfort. The statute provides that the age of the child, the physical environment, and the inclination of the custodian and the child as to the permanency of the relationship shall be considered. In this case, so the first task is for the court to consider that particular matter. The plaintiff testified that defendant had little contact since the separation of the parties, which occurred on or about November 18, 2022. Plaintiff also testified that she has a close relationship and that she does not believe that there is much bonding between defendant and the children. Plaintiff stated that both of the parties cared for the children when they were married, although she was principally responsible for much of the care. She testified that prior to separation, defendant was involved, however, that weaned after separation and that his contact was minimal. The defendant will acknowledge and did through his testimony that in this particular case, that in the time since the separation, he'd not had Delaney in his care on an overnight basis for any overnights. He'd had Sadie in his care about 4 overnights and Robbie 12 overnights since, again, the separation in November of 2022. Defendant testified that my wife is good at reading the children and Delaney opens up to her mother, end quote. He testified he does provide guidance, but not assist in school activities recently. James Nelson testified defendant was a good relationship with his kids. Amy Nelson testified defendant was attentive to his kids. Bill DeSmit testified that defendant and children had a positive relationship, and Michelle DeSmit testified that defendant was a good father. When we look at the evidence as a whole, and we look at the fact that since separation, the defendant has had minimal of any overnight contact, Notwithstanding, the court does note he testified that he does pick up the children, runs them to various places. He has had contact on a weekly basis. It does appear in this matter that, and this court is clearly convinced that the children look for guidance, discipline, and necessities of life, and they look to the plaintiff mother. The court will therefore find that the established custodial environment is with the plaintiff. This is important because once the established custodial environment is established, it cannot be changed without there being presented clear and convincing evidence. Clear and convincing evidence is evidence in which would produce in the mind of the trier of fact a firm belief or conviction as to the truth of the allegation sought to be established. Evidence so clear, direct, and weighty and convincing as to enable the fact finder to come to a clear conviction without hesitancy of the truth of the precise facts in issue. So the court will examine the factors under the best interest of the child test as delineated under MCL 722.23. Court would note that there was minimal testimony concerning many of the factors that the court has to consider, but I will consider them based upon the evidence presented. The first factor is the love, affection, other emotional ties existing between the parties involved and the children. In this case, the plaintiff testified, and some of this is reiterating under the established custodial environment, but I will as it relates to each of the factors to establish the basis for the court's determination. Plaintiff testified she has a close relationship with the children and they are together every day. She has a loving, affectionate relationship with them. She does not, however, believe that the defendant is bonded as much to the children. She testified that the defendant curses at the children and has had little contact since separation, which again, he acknowledged. However, James Nelson testified that the defendant had a good relationship with the kids. Bill DeSmit testified that the kids had a positive relationship with the defendant. Court will note that the party's adult child, Aiden, testified about his relationship with the defendant, and he talked about a strained relationship between the defendant and the other children, but he did acknowledge that he had not observed his siblings and the defendant together since approximately December 2022, so well over a year. When the court looks at this factor, the court will find that looking at this love, affection, emotional ties existing between the parties, that the plaintiff mother has a slight advantage on this factor. Next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to give the children love, affection, guidance, continuation, the education, and raising the children in a particular religion or creed. There's two factors, the capacity and the disposition. The capacity, as the parties already shown, they have the capacity to do that and have done that. The question is, do they have the disposition as well? Court does believe that the parties both have the ability, capacity, disposition to provide love, affection, and guidance. As it relates to the continuation and the education, the plaintiff testified that she is the one that does the homework with the children, although the defendant had in the past. The defendant had used to go to conferences, but hasn't in the last year or two. Plaintiff testified she goes to all the schools, the children's activities at school, and that the defendant has went to a few. Plaintiff testified that she was the one that provided for and paid for these educational trips for the children, and defendant confirmed that he did not attend some of the children's school activities. He testified that he did not assist with school activities recently. Neither party was involved in a religious upbringing of the children on a regular, consistent basis, so the court is not considering that. However, when again consider the continuation and the education and raising of the children, it does appear that the plaintiff mother does have a slight advantage. Factor C is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to provide the children with food, clothing, medical care, and other remedial care recognized or permitted under the law in place of medical care and other material needs. Both parties have provided material needs for the children. Court will note that the defendant had voluntarily paid the sum of $1,000 per month during the pendency of the case until September 2023. This did provide the plaintiff the ability to provide material needs for the children. Both parties have income which allows them to provide for the material needs of the children. Court has to look at, and I will look at as far as the medical needs of the children. Plaintiff carries health insurance for the children at a cost of $300 per month. She testified she was one that made the medical appointments. However, in the past when they were together, the defendant may have scheduled some of those. She is the one that takes the children to the medical appointments, although in the past the defendant had helped. When I balance these, it does appear that the plaintiff was more involved in providing for the medical care of the children, which would give her a slight advantage on this factor. Next factor is the length of time the children have lived in a stable, satisfactory environment, the desirability of maintaining continuity. The plaintiff has remained in the marital home with the intention to remain. Defendant has not disputed that this home is a satisfactory environment for the children. Defendant testified he lives in a one-bedroom apartment, which hinders his ability to have the children on an overnight basis. Defendant testified that his girlfriend lives with him, and he has testified that, again, this arrangement with the apartment is not the best accommodation and not the ideal situation. He stated that once the plaintiff refinances the house, he will be in the ability to purchase another place, which will be more accommodating to the children. The court, however, has to assess the evidence as it currently exists and not speculate as to what will happen in the future, whether it's a matter of months or years. In view of that, the court will find that this factor does favor the plaintiff mother. The next factor is the permanency of the family unit of the existing or proposed custodial home or homes. Both parties have resided with a significant other, and neither party has plans to change this. The court therefore find that this factor is equal as to both parties. Next factor is the moral fitness of the parties involved. The testimony is alleged by plaintiff that defendant has a drinking problem. There has been testimony by both parties about this. Also, testimony by James Nelson about an altercation that occurred at a restaurant where a defendant was drinking while Aiden was in his care. Amy Nelson also testified about this event and defendant's intoxication. Plaintiff testified that defendant went through AA sometime in 2022, and Aiden testified about the defendant's drinking problem as well. The defendant testified about plaintiff's affair, which plaintiff admitted, and she testified that defendant was aware of this and encouraged this, although there is absolutely no corroboration of this fact through the testimony. And unfortunately, the court notes that both of the parties have involved the children in these adult issues to the detriment of the children. The court will therefore find that this factor does not favor either party in this case. Next factor is the mental and physical health of the parties. There was very little evidence concerning this. However, that plaintiff did testify that neither party had any physical limitations, and there was no testimony about mental disabilities or infirmities that would impact this. The court will find that this factor does not weigh in favor of either party. The next factor is the home, school, and community record of the children. Both parties have testified about the children doing well in school. It would appear that plaintiff was the one that assisted the children with schooling, extracurricular activity, sports, dance lessons. The defendant testified that he did not assist in school activities recently. There's no testimony about community record of the children. The court will find that this factor did slightly favor plaintiff mother. Next factor is the reasonable preference of the children. If the court considers the children be of sufficient age to express a preference, clearly the children are of sufficient age to express a preference. They did, and the court is taking that into consideration in this matter. Next factor is the willingness and ability of each of the parents to facilitate and encourage a close and continued parent-child relationship between the children and the other parent. In this matter, plaintiff testified that she has encouraged the children to go with the defendant and she has not kept them from him. Defendant testified that he did involve discussions, or the children in discussions of the plaintiff's affair. And as he stated, I quote, "My emotions got the best of me," end quote. He also, the court will note that he'd involved the children in adult matters, and I find that this can only be damaging to the relationship between the children and the other party. And other than this issue, the parties have been civil and cooperative with each other concerning parenting time. Defendant acknowledged that he has not forced the issue of parenting time and testified he has an attempt to accommodate the children's desires in this matter. Court believes that each of the parties will facilitate and encourage a relationship between the other party and the children. So the court has weighed this factor equally in this matter. Next factor is domestic violence, whether the violence was directed against or witnessed by the children. There's been no testimony about domestic violence. The court will therefore not consider this factor. Next factor is whether any other factor considered by the court to be relevant to the particular child custody dispute. Court will note that Aiden, the adult son of the parties, did testify, and the court is considering his testimony concerning how the parties treated him as well as his observations. The court will note that in the case of In Re Taurus X, that the court can note that how parties do treat one child is indicative of how they may treat the other children as well. When the court considers all the evidence in this case and all the factors under the best interest of the child test, the court is clearly convinced that it is in the best interest of the minor children to remain in the physical custody of the plaintiff mother. The court does believe in this matter that the parties can communicate and can discuss and agree upon important decisions concerning the children. As a result, the court will grant the parties joint legal custody. The next factor that the court has to consider then is parenting time. Parenting time is covered by Michigan Compiled Law 722.27A. And again, the factors set forth concerning that. The court will consider the best interest factors as I have. The court will also consider the following factors: special circumstances or needs of the children. There are none in this case. Next, whether the children are less than 1 year of age, they are not. Next, likelihood of abuse or neglect of a child during parenting time. The court does not believe that based upon the evidence that, again, there is a likelihood of abuse or neglect. Next is the likelihood of abuse of a parent during the exercise of parenting time. The court does not believe that there's been testimony or evidence of that. Next factor is inconvenience or burdensome impact of travel. The parties live relatively close to each other, so that is not an issue. Next factor is whether the parent is reasonably expected to exercise ordered parenting time. The court does believe that, notwithstanding the fact that the defendant has not taken much in the way of parenting time, that he would, again, under various circumstances, take the children as ordered, and that he has done it through the week, although it's not been ordered in this matter. Next factor is whether parents frequently fail to exercise parenting time. The court will only note in that regard that the parenting time has been offered to the defendant. He's not exercised that, somewhat because of his limited situation with his home and the inability to have the children on an overnight basis. Next factor is threatened or actual detention of the children. There's been no evidence of this, so the court will not consider that. Next is any other factors to be considered. When the court considers this particular factor, the court does believe that the parties have been cooperative, and the court would hope that this continued. The court will therefore grant to the defendant standard parenting time, alternating weekends from Friday, 6 o'clock p.m. to Sunday at 6 o'clock p.m., midweek from 4 to 8 o'clock p.m. on a Wednesday in the event that the parties cannot agree to another time, alternating holidays, defendant to have spring break in each year, and to alternate weeks in the summer. However, the court notes that that's not very capable of having that at this time. The court will order that this parenting time will occur at such time as he has adequate accommodations for the children to have bedrooms in his home. Until then, the parties will mutually agree upon any overnight parenting time as they have in the past. Court next have to consider child support. As the plaintiff testified, the parties had a lavish lifestyle when they were together. They took trips and they ate out most evenings. The parties were able to maintain this lifestyle on 2 incomes. Not just 2 incomes, but the parties owned approximately 5 rental properties, which generated income as well. The rental income is reflected in the parties' 2021 and 2022 joint tax returns admitted as Defendants Exhibit A and B. Plaintiff has an income of $84,000 a year with a deduction of $300 per month for health insurance attributable to the children. There was testimony about the plaintiff had income from reselling some various event tickets. However, this appears to be an isolated circumstance and has not occurred on a regular basis, so the court will not consider that. The court will note that the defendant's income is much more difficult to assess. Plaintiff has alleged that defendant has much larger income than appears in the parties' tax returns. Plaintiff submitted an exhibit, the bank statements of the parties' joint account, as well as the defendant's business account. The business account statements evidence a substantial amount of money going through the account. Defendant testified that he liked to deal in cash. It would move cash from the accounts and then redeposit it at a later point when it would, if it was not needed or needed in the account. Defendant testified that he has substantial business expenses, labor, materials, equipment, as well as assorted other business expenses, and many of these are reflected on the joint tax returns of the parties. Defendant's Exhibit A, the parties' joint 2021 tax return, reflects plaintiff's income and rental income from Kate's Diner, capital gains income, and various deductions and expenses for C Squared LLC. The parties testified, or there was included in the tax returns or Schedule C, the profit and loss from the business, which show a profit in 2021 of $8,222. However, the court does note that there are other expenses that could be added back. There were vehicle expenses of just over $18,000 and depreciation of $1,371. If the court adds those back, the income would be $27,737. Court will note that these can be added back in pursuant to the Child Support Formula Manual, Section 2.01, parens E, parens 4. Defendant's Exhibit B, the Schedule C for a profit and loss for the C Squared Construction LLC, showed a business profit of $21,565, a vehicle expense of just over $25,000, and depreciation of just over $1,000, bringing the total, if I added that back, into about $48,000. The defendant testified that his net income is between $22,000 and $30,000 per year. The plaintiff testified that she had to borrow money to support herself during the time the parties had separated. Defendant testified that, as reflected in Plaintiff's Exhibit 7, that he borrowed $25,000 on April 19, 2023 from Best Egg and $15,725 from Lending Point on April 20, 2023 for a total borrowing amount of $40,725. The parties had both previously testified as well that when they sold Kate's Diner, they paid off $60,000 in credit card debt. If the defendant was making the amount of money claimed by plaintiff, then the question would be, why did he have to borrow over $40,000 in April of 2023? And why did the parties have over $60,000 in credit card debt? When the court calculates the plaintiff's income and averages out, consistent with the 3-year comparison contained in the tax returns, the court does believe that the defendant's average income would be approximately $38,000 when those various expenses are added back in. Again, plaintiff challenges the defendant's income. However, the parties did file joint tax returns, and when they signed those returns, they did so with the following statement, and I quote, "Under the penalty of perjury, I declare that I have examined this return and accompanying schedules and statements, and to the best of my knowledge and belief is true, correct, and complete," end quote. Plaintiff admits that she signed the tax returns for each of these years after she had scanned through them. She cannot now claim ignorance when it is self-serving to do so. The court therefore will find that, again, the amount of his income is in the amount of $38,000 for purpose of calculating the child support. Court will therefore take those two amounts and her income of $84,000 with the deduction of $300 per month for the health insurance attributable to the minor children for calculations of child support. With that, I think the court has addressed all the issues that need to be addressed. Ms. Greenlee-Clore, has the court failed to address anything or missed anything before we conclude?
Your Honor, I think because there's a PPO between the parties, I think we've requested that the parties communicate via an app. Can the court make a ruling on that?
Okay. Let me address Mr. Schaefer. Do you have any problem with the parties communicating through our family wizard or parent talk or any of the other various apps?
Well, I usually would not if in fact I thought there was an ongoing problem with that, but I would hope that these people can talk to each other because they have joint custody for the benefit of the children, and Wizard and whatever other app always, in my estimation, hampers that ability.
Okay. What the court will do at this point, Ms. Greenlee-Corr, is the court will make an exception on the PPO to state that the parties can communicate concerning specific child-related matters and court-ordered parenting time. So in this particular matter, the court will tell both of the parties, do not, in fact, communicate with the other party under the guise or ruse of child-related matters. I've had in the past where parties will say, well, I wanted to check and see if the children are able to come this weekend, and then they engage in a diatribe about all of the problems they've had during the marriage or issues that they take against the other party. Again, that will be a violation of the PPO. It's only as it relates to specific child-related matters and court-ordered parenting time. Anything else, Ms. Greenlee-Corr?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Schaefer, is there anything you believe that the court has failed to address or needs to address before we conclude?
No, I think you've covered, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll ask Ms. Greenlee-Corr, as you represent the plaintiff, that you would prepare the appropriate paperwork and pleadings in this matter, submit those to the defendant court for approval, and submit those to Mr. Schaefer as well to see that it is consistent with this court ruling. With that, the court will end this matter at 4:33 p.m. You're free to go. Good luck to both of you. I hope you have that everything works out and that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.